Hi guys, today we are going to be reading Frindle and we are ready for chapter 8. So we have the character Nick. Nick is in 5th grade and he is kind of mischievous. Nick is in Mrs. Granger's English class and he has noticed that she is kind of a strict teacher. But he has pushed the limits and he has been trying to get out of homework, and he's been trying to get just kind of pushing the limits a little bit. So the first thing that he did was he tried to get out of homework the first day of school. Instead, he got double the homework. So he was trying to delay the homework process. Instead, he got an oral report for the next day. And during that oral report, he thought he could make that oral report just last forever and ever and ever. And since he did that, then it had to be like a quick version of the class. And he still had the class time. So on his way home from that, he had the bright idea that he would come up with a word. And the word that he came up with was Frindle. So not only did he come up with a word, so the first thing he did was delay the class. The second thing that he did, or he tried to get out of the assignment. The second thing that he did was delay the class. And now the third thing that he's done is he has come up with a word named Frindle. Frindle means pin. He has all of his friends using the word Frindle. In fact, in the last chapter that we read, him and his friend made a big production about Frindle. Now, Mrs. Granger at the end of class had him stay towards the end and had a discussion about it. And at first she was kind of friendly about it and just kind of said, basically, hey, knock it off, let's not do that again, we don't need any more of that funny business about Frindle, and about no more of that funny business. And he was like, well, about what? I really didn't have my Frindle. And her eyes got heated up. And then he said it another time and her eyes got even more heated. Oh man, she was not a happy camper. So now that is the fourth thing that he has done that has got Mrs. Granger on not happy with him. Whew. We are on chapter 8, and this chapter is called Mightier Than the Sword. Mightier Than the Sword. We're going to start on that. 2 days later, the photographer came to take class pictures. Oh no. The 5th grade picture would be taken last, right after lunch. That gave Nick and his secret agents plenty of time, and they whispered something into the ear of every 5th grader. All the individual pictures had been taken, and finally it was time for the group picture. Everyone was lined up on the auditorium stage. Everyone's hair looked great, and everyone was smiling. But when the photographer said, "Say cheese," no one did. Instead, every kid said, "Frindle," and they held one up for the camera to see. The photographer was out of film. So that shot was the only 5th grade group picture he took. 6 of the 5th grade teachers were not pleased, and Mrs. Granger was furious. No one had really wanted to make the teachers mad. It was just fun. It also got all of the kids in the school talking about the new word, and when people pick up on a new word, they say it all the time. The kids at Lincoln Elementary School liked Nick's new word a lot, but not Mrs. Granger. The day after the class picture, she made an announcement to each of her classes and posted a notice on the main bulletin board by the office. Anyone who is heard using the word Frindle instead of the word pen will stay after school and write this sentence 100 times. I am writing this punishment with a pen, Mrs. Granger. But that just made everyone want to use Nick's word even more. Staying after school with the Lone Granger. The Lone Granger made a badge of honor. There were kids in her classroom every day after school. It went on like that for a couple of weeks. One day, near the end of the 7th period, Mrs. Granger asked Nick to come talk to her after school. This is not detention, Nicholas. I just want to talk. Nick was excited. It was kind of like a conference during a war. One side waves a white flag and the generals come out and talk. General Nicholas Allen. Nick liked the sound of that. He stuck his head in Mrs. Granger's doorway after school. You wanted to talk with me? Yes, Nicholas. Please come in and sit down. When he was settled, she looked at him and said, don't you think this Frindle business has gone far enough? It's just a disruption to the school, don't you think? Nick swallowed hard, but he said, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. It's just fun. It is just fun. And it really is a real word. It's not a bad word. It's just different. And besides, it's how words really change, isn't it? That's what you said. Mrs. Granger sighed. It is how a word could be made up brand new, I suppose. But the word pen, should it really be replaced by the other word? The word pen has a long, rich history. It comes from the Latin word for feather, penna. It started to become our word pen because quills made from feathers were some of the first writing tools ever made. It's a word that comes from somewhere. It makes sense, Nicholas, but Frindle makes just as much sense to me, said Nick. And after all, didn't somebody just make up the word penna too? That got a spark from Mrs. Granger's eyes, but all she said was, then you are not going to stop this? And Nick looked right in her eyes and said, well, me? I mean, a bunch of my friends and I took an oath about using the word and have to keep our promise. And besides, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I like my word. Nick tried to look brave, like a good general should. Very well then, I thought, it would end up this very way. Mrs. Granger pulled a fat white envelope from her desk drawer and held it up. This is a letter I've written to you, Nicholas. Nick held out his hand, thinking she was going to give it to him, but she didn't. I am not going to send it to you until all this is over. I wanted you to sign your name and put today's date across the back of the envelope. When you read it, whenever that may be, you will know it is the same letter and that I have not made any changes to it. This is weird, Nick said to himself. To Mrs. Granger, he said, sure. He signed his name in his best cursive and put the date under it. I'm going to show you that picture. Then Mrs. Granger stood up abruptly and said, then, that is all for today, Nicholas, and may the best word win. There was a frown in her face, but her eyes were different, almost happy. Have you ever seen someone frown, but their face almost happy? I don't even know if I can do that. And Nick was halfway down the hall before it hit him. She likes this war. and she wants to win really bad. Walking to school the next day, Pete had a great idea. How about we see if we can get every kid in the whole 5th grade to go up and ask Mrs. Granger, "Can I borrow a Frindle?" "You mean, Mrs. Granger, may I borrow a Frindle?" said Dave. "Gotta use good grammar. Don't want to upset dangerous Grangerous." Oh my gracious. Can you imagine having nicknames for a teacher like that? Don't you dare tell me if you have a nickname like that for me. "Sounds good to me," said Nick. She can't keep everyone after school, can she?" Almost 80 kids stayed after school with Mrs. Granger that day. They filled her room and spilled out in the hallway. The principal had to stay late to help, and they had to arrange 2 special late buses to get all the kids home. I wonder if she got in trouble. Do you think Mrs. Granger got in trouble for that? I wonder what Mrs. Merritt would say about that. And the next day, all the 5th graders did it again, and so did a lot of other students, over 200 kids. Parents called to complain. The school bus drivers threatened to go on strike, and then the school board and the superintendent got involved. The school board and the superintendent, that would be like her boss's boss. And about this time, the principal of the Lincoln Elementary School paid a little visit to the home of Mr. and Mrs. Allen. Oh my gracious, can you imagine the principal coming to your house? What would happen if the principal came to your house? She wanted to talk to them about their son, the one in 5th grade, the one named Nick. Tell me, what would you do if the principal had to come to your house? How would you feel? Would you be scared? Would you be happy? Now, what if you were the one that started this Frindle business? Now, I also want you to tell me, do you think Mrs. Granger's going to get in trouble? Oh my gracious, what a mess that Nick has made. But kind of, Mrs. Granger's made a little bit of a mess too, hasn't she? Good golly, Miss Molly. I can't wait to see what happens in chapter 9 next. And it's called Chess. You'll have to wait until tomorrow, though. I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful day. I am sorry about my noisy puppy. The trash truck went by, and Marmalade decides she does not like the trash truck because it's so noisy. Have a great day, guys. I'll talk to you later.